Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. For those in virtual attendance, please note that there is a globe icon near the hand feature on your screen. This will allow you to listen and participate in tonight's event in Spanish. Our interpreter will now make this announcement in Spanish.
Hola, buenas tardes y bienvenidos a esta sesión. Si quieren escuchar la sesión en español, localice el icono de interpretación que está en la parte inferior derecha de su pantalla. Seleccione español y si escucha dos voces, puede silenciar el audio original. Gracias.
Thank you. Our interpreters this afternoon are Rebecca Knight and Ashley Nunez. We appreciate your time and services this evening. Chair Ariana, when you're ready, we can proceed with the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Good evening and welcome to the March 10th, 2022 regular meeting of the Menlo Park Independent Redistricting Commission. Tonight's meeting is a hybrid meeting with limited IRC members and city staff present in council chambers, while others participate remotely to ensure proper social distancing during our federal, state, and local emergency. I would like to introduce the commissioners and staff present this evening. We have Commissioners Ballas, Earhart, Hill, Saad, and Wolter. I believe Commissioners Saad, Ballas, and Gilmer are present in chambers. Okay. And from city staff, we have City Clerk Judy Herron, Administrative Assistant Sarah Sandoval, and Assistant City Attorney Tamara Burke. Ms. Sandoval, please provide instructions to the commission and members of the public on how tonight's meeting will proceed.
Thank you, Chair Ariano. For members of the public in virtual attendance who wish to provide public comment, after the chair calls for public comment on the item you wish to speak on, please engage the raised hand feature at the bottom of your screen. If you are calling in from a landline or cell phone, please press *9 to raise your virtual hand. That concludes the instructions, and I return the meeting to the chair.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to agenda item C, public comment. Under public comment, the public may address the commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. Please clearly state your name and address or the political jurisdiction in which you live. Also, please note the commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore we cannot respond to non-agenda items raised under public comment other than to provide general information. Ms. Sandoval, do we have any public comment?
Thank you, Chair. At this time, any member of the public wishing to comment on any item not listed on the agenda may do so. Virtual attendees should please go ahead and engage that raised hand feature at the bottom of your screen or dial *9 from a landline or cell phone. For public comment on subjects not listed on this evening's agenda. Seeing no hands raised, Chair Ariano, please continue.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to agenda item D, consent calendar. Under the consent calendar, the IRC may take action to approve routine business items in one motion unless a commissioner, member of staff, or member of the public requests that an item be discussed or continued to a later date. Ms. Sandoval, any comment on tonight's consent calendar?
Thank you, Chair. At this time, any member of the public wishing to comment on the consent calendar, item D1, accept the Independent Redistricting Commission meeting minutes for March 10th, 2022. Please engage the raised hand feature at the bottom of your screen or press *9 now. This will be our final call for public comment on item D1 of the consent calendar. Seeing no hands raised, Chair Ariano, please continue.
Okay, thank you. Back to the commission. Any discussion or questions on our one consent calendar item? Yes, Commissioner Earhart.
Yes, I noticed something that needs to be fixed in the minutes. It's on page D 1.2, the first action item. It lists the vote as passing 5-7. That should be 5-2.
Thank you, Commissioner Earhart. We will make that correction.
Thank you.
Okay, anything further? And if not, I will entertain a motion to adopt the minutes as amended.
So moved.
Okay, thank you.
Second?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Sandoval, please state the motion and call for the vote.
Thank you, Chair Ariano. I have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Earhart and seconded by Commissioner Ballas to approve the consent calendar and adopt the minutes as amended. Are there any further commission discussion or questions? Okay, seeing none, by roll call vote, Commissioner Ballas,
Yes.
Commissioner Earhart,
Yeah.
Commissioner Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Saad,
Yes.
Commissioner Walter,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gilmer,
Yes.
and Chair Ariano.
Yes.
Thank you. And the motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. So that brings us to agenda item E, our public hearing. This is our fourth public hearing to receive input regarding the composition of the city's electoral districts. I would like to introduce Assistant City Attorney Tamara Burke to present the item. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Tonight is a special meeting requested by the commissioners at the last meeting to provide additional opportunity to review, discuss, and deliberate on the maps that were submitted prior to the adoption of the final map. This public hearing is meant to allow the public and the commissioners another opportunity to provide important input on maps that have been submitted for the commission's consideration, and for the commission to discuss and decide which maps should be eliminated from consideration and which should be considered further or perhaps adjusted. As a reminder, as we're coming to a close on our public hearings, Elections Code Section 21608D requires maps to be posted at least 7 days before adoption. So the IRC must be prepared to select the final map or a small selection of final maps on April 7th, and that map has to be posted on that date to comply with this 7-day publication requirement prior to the April 14th adoption of the final map. With that said, we have our demographer here again, who will take over and lead our discussion going forward.
Thank you, Assistant City Attorney Burke. I will go ahead and dive into a quick presentation here. Hopefully we can answer many of the questions and provide some insights to get this discussion going for this evening. So without further ado, I will go ahead and jump into a screen share and stop my camera feed during the presentation. Okay, can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, let's go ahead and get started here. Good evening, members of the IRC and the public who are attending tonight's meeting. Tonight, we will review public maps submitted through 2 p.m. on March 18th, 2022, and provide information and guidance that we hope will be helpful to the IRC this evening. As a brief agenda for this presentation, we will cover the following items. The first being redistricting considerations. Second, supplemental information specific to Menlo Park. Third, an overview of the proposed district maps. Fourth, an overview of GeoNova's process for analyzing draft maps. And then last but not least, we will provide an overview of the map categories or groups that we have seen from public submissions up to this point. As far as redistricting considerations, the #1 consideration for GeoNova is to adhere to redistricting best practices. In response to comments from the public and the IRC, this is just to reiterate, a population balance is a critically important factor in the redistricting process. As a matter of fact, it is the #1 statistical criteria we evaluate to determine if a map is viable or not. This is not to say that it is the only statistical criteria that we consider, but it is certainly the most important one. Another equally important criteria that we consider that is not necessarily statistical is geographically contiguous and compact districts. As a follow-up to an inquiry from Commissioner Hill, geographic compactness generally refers to the creation of districts that are shaped as regularly as possible. This is a consideration for redistricting, but will not have a dramatic impact on Menlo Park due to population balance, the unique geography of the city, and other factors being considered by the IRC and the public up to this point in the process. After those two conditions are met, we can make adjustments based on input from the public and the IRC. As a follow-up to inquiries from the public and IRC, school districts can be considered as communities of interest in the redistricting process. However, they already correlate quite closely with defined geographic areas of the city. As an example, for elementary school districts, Ravenswood, Menlo Park City School District, and Las Lomitas School District serve more than 97% of the city's population, and roughly follow for Ravenswood, the current District 1, Menlo Park City School District, more or less the areas of Districts 2, 3, and 4, and Las Lomitas, primarily but not entirely, as far as Menlo Park is concerned, the District 5 Sharon Heights area of Menlo Park. And based on feedback during the redistricting process so far, the IRC must decide what it will prioritize for redistricting, geography or population balance. And we'll get into more details in the subsequent slides here. On a related note specific to the redistricting process, before we get into a deep dive of the data, public engagement has been exceptional during this process. As a matter of fact, public engagement has been greater during this process for Menlo Park than for entities with over 100 times the population. City Clerk Heron and her team have done an outstanding job getting the word out, and it has shown with the number of public map submissions and input that we have received so far. Speaking of public engagement, the deadline for public map submissions is tomorrow, March 25th, 2022. We will be processing those maps as quickly as possible to make sure that they are provided to city staff in time to provide the agenda packet for the next IRC meeting. Okay, with all that being said, we'll go ahead and jump right into the data. This slide here illustrates some unique geographic challenges specific to redistricting for Menlo Park. 106 out of the 417 census blocks have 0 population, and those are the blocks that you see outlined in red with the hash line fill. This comprises over 25% of the census blocks in the city, and it has a significant impact on the possible geographic configurations for districts 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is just something to consider during this process. This next slide shows 0 population blocks a little bit more zoomed in the northern portion and central area of Menlo Park. In the north, we see significant impact from the marshlands along the bay and the Facebook campus in the northwest portion of the city, all these being 0 population census blocks. In the center of the city, we see the greatest impact along the rail line and in the downtown area. when combined with the city's geography and irregularly shaped census blocks in certain areas, this presents a challenge for creating districts that are population balanced and geographically contiguous. The IRC will have to decide today what is the priority, appealing geography or population balance. As an example, the preferred geography expressed by the IRC and the public up to this point results in Belhaven comprising 89% of the proposed District 1 population. This results in reduced flexibility in terms of population for the other 4 districts due to requirements for population balance. Also in this scenario, the best case population balance is going to be approximately 6.6, or the best case population variance or deviation is going to be approximately 6.6%, given the hard boundary between District 1 and District 2 along Highway 101.
I'm sorry, sir. Would you say again what you just said about that last slide? I'm afraid I didn't completely follow.
Sure. So just given input that we received up to this point, and just, as you'll see in the figure and also in the statistics here, the Belhaven neighborhood, I mean, this is the neighborhood as geographically defined from data provided by the city. That 5766 would be 89% of the proposed District 1 population, which in most of the maps that we've seen so far, the boundary between District 1 and 2 is having that boundary along Highway 101, which is a perfectly reasonable, easily recognizable boundary, but that does result in a cap of that D1 population at 6478. So we're seeing when you combine those 0 population blocks with this preference to have that clean line along Highway 101, we are seeing those limitations, and best case scenario, we're going to end up with a population variance of about 6.6% due to what we can do with the other districts under this preferred geographic configuration. Does that help to answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I just needed you to go through it again. Thank you.
Sure, yeah, no problem. Just as a summary of proposed district maps through Districtor up to this point, this is through March 18th, so last Friday. We have received and processed 26 public maps. 8 have been withdrawn. 7 did not pass analysis for being a viable map, and then 11 are viable, and we have created maps and demographic data tables, which were included in your agenda packets. As far as the public map analysis, this process is pretty straightforward on our part and on GeoNovo's part. We really just run 2 tests. Are the districts geographically contiguous, yes or no? And do those districts result in a population variance of less than 10%? If yes to both of these conditions, we move that map forward and generate a map and demographic data for consideration by the IRC. As far as public maps submitted through Districtor, we have received some questions regarding why some changes were made early on and kind of what we're doing in the process moving forward. So hopefully this will help to simplify that a little bit. Early submissions were needed to be modified due to the incorrect geography and population in Districtor early in the process. So that's why you're seeing some of those changes, specifically up to public map 110, or yeah, public map 110. Submissions have not been modified for all subsequent submissions, which were submitted at March 7th, 2022 or later. So this would, for all the viable maps, this would be anything from public map 115 moving forward. In general, we've seen the map submissions fall into one of 2 categories. The predominant one being preserve current districts while making some minor adjustments for population balance. And then the second, which is a pretty unique and we think is a pretty interesting concept, is the having vertical districts. So having more north-south running districts, as you can see there in the figure, particularly with District 5 and 4, and then having a little bit of District 3. So what we're seeing with these vertical concept districts is that those 3 districts in the center and the southern portion of the city are kind of all sharing a little bit of the downtown area. So that is definitely an interesting concept that we've seen so far. I would like to conclude the presentation with some final notes and comments to the IRC. The demographic composition of Menlo Park does not make it possible to create a protected class VRA district. Second, be prepared to eliminate some maps. Only one set of council districts can be approved at the end of this process. And then I want to challenge you all to a goal for tonight's meeting. Only 3 maps should advance, or let's have a goal of advancing 3 maps to the next round, so that we can make sure that the process is moving along nicely. And as Assistant City Attorney Burke mentioned, we do have some deadlines that we're trying to meet. Specifically, deadlines to submit all of these the approved maps and data to the Registrar of Voters by April 15th at the latest, which is going to be pretty tight window here at the end of the process. And at this time, I will go ahead and hand it back to Chair Arellano.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sands. Any clarifying questions on the presentation by our folks at Geo and Novo before we open up the public hearing?
I have one.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Commissioner Barros has a question.
Yes, okay, please go ahead.
I can't figure out any way that you can actually see my hand raised. So.
Yeah, I'm just going to rearrange the windows here on my desktop, and now I can see you guys.
Okay, clarifying question. On the first, I think it was the first page of the presentation, Geo pointed out that if we stick with the 101 boundary between District 1 and District 2, that results in a 6.6% variation. And I think I just want to make sure that's just meant to be a point of just to understand that you're all the way up at 6.6%, but that's well within the 10% boundary. So I just want to make sure that it's just sort of a yellow flag, not a red flag, for trying to keep that geographical boundary between 1 and 2.
Yeah, that is correct, Commissioner Ballas. That is, we are still well within the variance at this point. Again, like I think you phrased it very, very well. It's just a yellow flag, okay, saying that you don't have a ton of wiggle room, for the other 4 districts. So, if the IRC and the public would like to keep that boundary, that clear definable boundary, Highway 101, totally acceptable. Just limits our wiggle room with the other districts.
Got it. Okay.
Commissioner Saad, please.
Thank you, Chair Arellano. Mr. Sainz, thank you so much. I'd like, first of all, to thank you and thank Mr. Garcia for modifying Plan number B into Plan B2 to accommodate a vertical arrangement of the districts. That was very helpful. Thank you so much. My second question to you, you mentioned we have 11 viable maps so far submitted. And then I just want to make sure so the public understand, we already dropped 2 of these during our last meeting. So what's remaining is 9 of them. And the challenge that you posed to us is to be able to drop 6 of these and advance 3 for our next meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct, Commissioner Saad.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hill.
Thank you, Chair. I'm wondering about the variance question with regard to the District 1, in that I wonder whether or not we are allowed or supposed to take into account the future likely growth of population in a particular neighborhood. as it happens in our city, there is an extraordinary amount of construction in that area of the city, more so than in others, is my general sense. I could be incorrect. And so we might reasonably guess that the population in the area to that side of 101 is going to grow in the future, and that what might be a 6% or even a 10% variation now could end up changing. And I don't know whether or not that is really within bounds for us to discuss in terms of that 101 boundary.
If I could quickly chime in here, that's a really good question. And I think it's kind of like looking at this from a pretty practical point of view. We are slightly constrained by what the elections code requires for the IRC to look at. And I'm looking at the code section right now. It's 21601A1 says that the population equality shall be based on total population of residents of the city as determined by the most recent census. So I think that we're pretty constrained to what we're dealing with now. But I see your point there, and I think it's a good one.
So, I mean, we might be more comfortable with a higher variance if we take into account in our opinions that a particular area might grow in population. That's if it serves other needs, such as the 101 boundary or the geographic compactness.
Mm-hmm. I think that so long as we're, kind of keeping the decisions based on what is currently there, and we're meeting that sort of legal minimum, then any other things that you can consider is probably is acceptable.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other commissioners with questions for our staff? Okay, I had just two questions. Mr. Sands, one of your slides, you say that describe our public engagement as excellent and compared it favorably to much larger cities. Could you tell me how it is you came to that sort of conclusion?
Sure. So I think it's I think I would say that strictly basing the success of public outreach on attendance at the meetings or quantity of comments at public meetings might not necessarily be maybe, I don't want to say unfair, but maybe just doesn't look at the whole picture. But what we are seeing specifically in Menlo Park, which compares very favorably, as you said, to much larger jurisdictions, a tremendous amount of public input in terms of the maps that are being submitted, the quality of input that we're seeing from the public, throughout this process. So I would say, by every measure that we've seen throughout this redistricting process, the public input and outreach for Menlo Park has been outstanding.
And in addition, we're making that conclusion because some of our other clients they're not cities, they're school districts, or they're healthcare districts, or they're transportation districts. And again, each of the other entities have tried to reach out to the communities, and with somewhat limited success. I mean, I'm not saying people are ignoring it, but just by the sheer interest and I would say definitely the sheer volume of maps that have been provided, I think Menlo Park is very, very well positioned to be proud of the engagement. Now, I don't know that it's one person submitting 10 maps or 10 people submitting one map, but the amount of input that we've had has been very good, and thank you for that.
Okay, and then one other question. You had a slide where you showed the zero population census blocks. The inference I drew from that is that can be one way of explaining how some of the shapes of the districts we might see are somewhat strange or irregular and not necessarily nice, neat, straight lines. Is that an accurate inference for me to draw?
Yeah, that would be one portion of it. So it would explain some somewhat irregular shapes, but also when trying to balance out population within the, between the districts, by having that large quantity of zero population districts, you could be changing the geography, but not doing anything to alter, to improve the population balance between those districts, at the same time.
Yes. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Good point. Good point. Okay. Thank you. Unless there's anything further from the commission, I'm going to open the public hearing. Okay. And then just one additional note before we do that, I would like to acknowledge that the commission did receive an email from a member of the public, Ms. Karen Grove. Ms. Grove, thank you for your email. I read it and we'll consider your comments in our discussion tonight. So Ms. Sandoval, any members of the public who wish to comment tonight?
Chair Ariano, if you could go ahead and formally open the public hearing.
Oh, yes. We will open the public hearing. And I guess I should probably check for raised hands.
Well, we've got one now from Karen
Yes.
Grove.
Perfect. Ms. Grove.
Good evening. Thank you. And you're welcome for my email. I appreciate you reading it. And I appreciate, in a way, the response to my suggestion that you sort of establish a threshold of population deviance and consider everything below that threshold to be of equal value, just, partly as a way to simplify the task ahead of you. The other thing I wanted to lift up from my email is the idea that we have really well-defined neighborhoods, and that should also help you simplify the process of creating districts that keep communities of interest / neighborhoods whole. And it's like kind of spelled out that neighborhoods have to be kept whole. And then the next priority is community of interest. I really think the focus should be on eliciting public comment and community input on what are those communities of interest that are not so clearly defined by neighborhoods. That's, I think, where the real value is of getting public input. And yet, to the point that Commissioner Hill made about the population projections for District 1, I believe that the plan allows for 4,500 homes, new homes since the 2010 census in District 1. So that's thousands of people. So I really just don't think it makes sense to try to reduce that population variance from negative anything that's legal in District 1. And there's going to be growth throughout the city because of our housing element requirements that we build a lot of housing in the next 8 years. So again, just the threshold, make that sort of a good enough, and then look at the other things which are probably more important. And the other thing I lifted up in my email, which I thought was a really good point that Lynn Bramlett made at the last meeting, was that in a way, since this is the first time we have districts, that the outreach that individual city council members have been doing within their districts has potentially created communities of interest to a degree within those districts, which is why I concluded by saying I kind of favor keeping the districts, but tidying them up. So because I think at this point we can make them follow geography more and neighborhood lines more accurately. So thank you very much. This is a big job you guys have. I hope that you can blow through some of it. Thanks.
Chair Ariano, if you'd like, I'll go ahead and call for any additional public comment.
I see we have one more hand raised.
Okay.
Pam Jones. Ms. Jones, please go ahead.
Good late afternoon, commissioners, and thank you for allowing me to speak. As you know, Pam Jones and I'm a resident in the Bellhaven neighborhood of Menlo Park. I have a couple of comments. One is whether or not in District 1, since there's over 55% of the population is Latino, does that not considered as a protected class? Number 2, the COI map that I presented, which is 2 havens, was including the Haven Avenue apartments, of which there's probably about 600 people over there, if the census is correct. The other thing about considering vertical districts, with the current boundaries, we have 2 districts, 1 and 2, that are along Bayshore Freeway. We have 3 districts that cover Willow Road, which is districts 1, 2, and 3. 2 districts that cover Middlefield Avenue, which is districts 3 and 4. And we have 2 districts in the downtown area, which is districts 3 and 4. And district 4 and 5 are both have a portion of Santa Cruz and West Menlo Park. And if you look at all of those, they are very consistent with the neighborhoods in that area. When we talk about what the borders are and the natural borders are, I want to make sure that you do consider those, as it is important to understand what areas need to have dual representation. And in doing so, the way it's set up now, they are alternating every 2 years for the council members, which means that there's an opportunity to always have council members that are more in tune with what is current, rather than having 2 council members, for example, touching 101, that are both up in the same election year. And again, thank you very much for allowing, for all the work that you're doing and the amount of people that you have generated interest in looking at this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Next member of the public, Lynn Bramlett. Ms. Bramlett, please go ahead.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you again for your service. This is such an important task. I agree with the comments made by Ms. Jones and Ms. Grove. You know, regarding the 4,500 homes coming into District 1, that's my understanding too, though I recognize the law that you have to follow. And, you know, in terms of the reality today, but if you can incorporate that, that would be great. Trying to keep the lines as close as possible to the existing districts, I think would be helpful. And then I do want to comment about public engagement. So I think some people are very keen on the idea of the maps. They love the maps. Maybe they work for the USGS. I have a neighbor in that situation. But the affected parties may not be involved necessarily. So if you're going to make some shifts in lines, it would really be good, I think, to have extra outreach. I'll comment more during the public engagement part, but those people may not be aware of plans to shift them. So I hope this is clear enough. Anyway, thank you again for your service. That's all for now.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bramlett. Any other members of the public, either here online or maybe someone I'm not seeing in council chambers, wish to provide comment? Okay, so I'm not seeing any more hands. So with that, I will formally close the public hearing and bring the discussion back to the commission and for consideration of the proposed maps. So we do have a couple of suggestions from staff. in the agenda. And just sort of in the interest of an orderly discussion, I do like the idea of just going through each of the maps, briefly discussing them, and then and briefly, I mean, perhaps 10 or so minutes on each map, and then once we are finished, we can
Question?
I'm sorry, I heard question, but I couldn't tell
Yes,
who.
Commissioner Ballas has a
Oh,
question.
yes, I'm sorry, Commissioner Ballas.
Thanks. It occurred to me as I was looking at these this afternoon that I think it would be a lot easier or a lot more efficient if we, as a commission, could come to some at least preliminary agreement as to what we're trying to solve for. I mean, I really appreciate what Geo did with grouping the maps, but I think there's an open question. I don't think we haven't discussed it, so I don't know what the sense of the group is about our high order bid, if you will. Do we want to really absolutely minimize the variance? Or do we want to say, look, anything between 10%, under 10% is fine. So why would we want to spend time or give preference to a map simply because it was closer to zero variance? So that's why I asked the question about the 6.6. In my mind, so I'll go on record, I'm saying, I don't care. As long as it's under 10%, I think we've met that criteria. Then we should look at the other things we're trying to solve for. That may not be the feeling of the commission, but if it is, or alternatively, if that's not the feeling of the commission, but once we agree on that, vote on it, just agree on it, then we can say, okay, that is going to affect in a rather large way which maps we want to take a close look at. Similarly, the other big difference here is there's I think a school of thought that says, hey, let's keep things as close to the way they are now as possible, given population changes, versus at least one voice that was saying, no, I think I really like this. I think they're calling it the vertical, where we say, let's try and get as many districts that have a piece of downtown so that they have a say, and a district representative, a city council representative that talks to the downtown needs. It'd be great if we could decide as a group before looking at each map, do we agree with that? Or do we agree with the stay the same? Do we agree with the vertical approach? Or some other thing? And then once we do that, I think going through the maps is going to be a lot easier. So I don't know if I can make a motion that we do it that way, or if we just want discussion about
I would just two things. One, I was really trying to address with my comments sort of the procedure and outline for our discussion, and not so much the substance of how we would go about considering the maps. I think that is certainly a key part of what we're supposed to do tonight. And so I appreciate your comments, and I saw some nodding heads, and I generally agree with them, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone following sort of has an idea of how we're going to proceed. And I do think it is important that at least we understand that we're going to go through all the maps. There's going to be a set amount of time, and then once we're finished, we'll select some for further consideration and eliminate most from further consideration. In the discussion on each of those maps, very, very receptive to your comments a moment ago in terms of how it is we essentially feel about those maps in terms of their conformance or non-conformance with what we think are the priorities in establishing the districts. I do see another hand, Commissioner Saad.
Thank you, Chair Ariano. I'd like to address quickly the fact that we have a new concept that was introduced, I think was introduced last time, regarding the vertical districts. And as I mentioned, I appreciate the fact that GeoNovo took it to put a suggested map in our docket, which is Plan 1B2. And within this, it brings districts 3, 4, and 5 into the downtown. I just want to give a little bit of background why I think it's important to have, in addition to the priority of the population equality and which I call it the demographic equality and the contiguous territories. It's important.
So Commissioner Assad, if your comments are directed specifically towards this map, Plan B2, do you think you could hold on to them until we get to the point where we're discussing Plan B2?
It's not ours. It's I'm talking mainly about the vertical districts in general.
Okay.
So the vertical districts in general, I thought that the concept is novel because everything is not, most of the maps or the previous maps were not non-vertical. They were what was grouped under preserved current districts. Is eventually those districts are going to result into allow the residents of Menlo Park to elect their council representatives. And the more we give, in my opinion, whether it's vertical or not, I'm just trying to lay the background, the fact that if you give economic power for every council representative instead of that economic power, when I say economic power is how much revenue is generated within their district, is it carries weight of the representation as well. So it's very important. Last time there was a mention of the hotels in the area, which it brought this to light to me, and I thought of it and about the fact that the businesses in downtown and the revenue sharing and the taxes that they generate for the city, it's important. So in that sense, I just want to make sure that those districts have also an even economic power on the representation on the council as well. Because remember, those the candidates in the first place are going to ask for campaign contribution from businesses and residents. Eventually, the census that we have today only counts the residents. That does not give us a sense of the businesses and their economic power or the revenue generation for the city and for the coffers. So I just want to make sure to give a little bit of a background of why there's some sort of a validation of why vertical districts might be worth considering as well, in addition to the current districts that we have. That would be all my comment.
Okay, thank you. So just one last thing before we dive into the first map. I like to observe the same procedures as 2 weeks ago. I would like to have everyone have the opportunity to speak once before anyone speaks twice on a given map. One other request from staff, if we could have the statutory criteria for drawing the districts somewhere for everybody to see.
Thank you, Terriano. Just give us a little bit to pull those up and we'll start sharing.
Okay.
As soon as
Okay, thanks. Okay, so let's go to our first map in the packet. Page E14 of the agenda packet, and it's map public 102. Any comments or observations about this map?
I will just once again say, I think it's difficult to comment on this specific map without having an idea of what criteria the council, the commission has agreed to in terms of what we want to prioritize.
Okay, so okay, understood. Let's go back to the statute.
Is this what you were referring to, Chair?
I don't see a screen. Let me see. Oh, here we go. Yes. So I guess to address Commissioner Ballas's point, and I think it was Commissioner Hill as well. Any general comments from the commission on how we want to, I suppose, translate the statutory language here, which says, here are the things that we need to look at in this order, and sort of apply these criteria to the way we are thinking about these maps. So understanding that GeoNovo did the first cut, which is boundaries are geographically contiguous. That is, I guess we can check that off the list. We may have some comments on maybe the shapes, but if there's anything truly odd, we can maybe, unless there's anything truly odd, I think we can just sort of accept that all of the maps and the proposed districts therein do have geographically contiguous boundaries. So then we can move down to the next criteria, which would be minimizing the division of neighborhoods and communities of interest. So I think, is there any discussion about how we want to characterize what neighborhoods and communities of interest would mean in the context of Menlo Park? Obviously everyone here is familiar with our existing neighborhoods, and I would imagine that we're comfortable using that as contemplated by the statute, neighborhoods. So anything beyond that or communities of interest?
If I can make one short comment. The
Sure.
just changed with the population equity across all districts being the primary federal requirement. That wasn't visible before.
Okay. Sure. Thank you.
May I just make one comment? The population equality across districts, we might discuss interpreting it one of two ways. One, does it meet the 10% threshold, which all of the maps do, and then we can leave it aside? Or two, do we actually take it as a primary criterion and strongly favor maps with very small variance? I wonder, how do we pick between those two?
Okay. Anyone have thoughts?
Chair, can we set also a time limit? I would suggest 20-minute max per map. We have 9 maps to go through. That would be 3 hours.
Sure. I mean, I think that is probably more than enough time per map. I mean, some maps we'll discuss longer than others, but 20 minutes seems to be more than adequate. I also would like to point out that it's almost 6 o'clock and we haven't looked at a single map yet. So just getting back to the list of the criteria. So, we have our neighborhoods that we're all familiar with. And I believe we have a neighborhood map that was in the agenda packet, page E1.29.
Chair Ariana,
Yes.
could I respond to Commissioner Hill's question?
Oh, yeah. Forgive me. Yeah. So, yeah,
okay.
please do.
So I think I'm going to answer it, and then I'd also ask that everybody else respond. The way I interpret it and the way I think we would be best served would be to say, as long as we're under the 10% variance, that any map that's under the 10% variance is co-equal with any other map. And then we can move on to the other aspects of that map, as opposed to saying, well, this map is 6% and that map is 8% or 3% and 6%. And therefore the 3% one is, preferred for that reason. And it's going to have to perform above and beyond to get equal to the 6%. So that would be my suggestion. I would love to hear how everybody else feels about that.
Okay. So if I'm understanding your comment correctly, it is that one, acknowledging that all of the proposed maps fall within the statutory / legal threshold for satisfying the act, but that we're not going to favor one map or the other just because it happens to have a lower or higher deviation from the ideal. Is that an accurate? Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to comment. You're still live. I actually take a different view. I believe that the lower disparity we can get in the population per district based on the current census is preferred. I won't say that a map that has a 2% variance is automatically favored over a map that has a 4% variance, but I would be more inclined to choose a map with a lower population variance than I would with one that's 9% or 8%. I think that part of what we're trying to do in the population equity across districts means trying to reach as close of an equity across the districts based on the 2020 census. This should be one of our goals. So I may be in the minority on that opinion, but that will factor into my, favoring one map over another.
Chair Ayano, if I could quickly intercede. I think that you folks are actually hitting on a lot of the things that will assist you in either voting to eliminate or move forward with certain maps. So it might be easier to talk about these issues that you're raising in reference to actual maps. I mean, you are all raising different viewpoints of how you should interpret these things and what you value more. And I think that that's essentially what how you're going to make your decisions about which maps will move forward and which maps will be eliminated. So while I can certainly see that there's an interest in kind of getting some consensus there, it seems like you're discussing all things in a vacuum.
Okay. I think that's probably a fair assessment. I do also want to make sure that we're comfortable in the way we're framing our discussions around each of these maps. And so I guess Commissioner Ballas's point, Commissioner Gilmer's point, I guess that's the things that we would weigh. Going back to the slide here with the criteria, are there anything else? Is there anything else that people sort of at a high level would like to, I guess, look at the statutes language, and then kind of put those into Menlo Park terms as we evaluate our maps. So
I have one thought,
Sure.
just to the population equality, which is the first criterion, and we have some varying interpretations of it. I think it's worth spending a minute to decide it.
Okay.
I would ask, within the 10% variation, reaching more population equality or not reaching more population equality, I want to ask why one or why the other. So the task we're doing is we're creating districts, and districts are people voting for city council members. People voting for city council members in order to, which is it, how important is it that the actual numbers of people who are being represented be within 100 people or within 1,000 people? And are they being less well represented in their vote if the variance is very high? Are we cheating some people out of the vote? And we don't need to get into the whole theory of this. I just want to boil it down to one thing. Yes, our task is to make the population equal across districts, but we're a small city, and the number of actual voters per district is different. Some districts seem to be a little younger. And so therefore, I would say that trying to maximize on population is perhaps going to be counteractive to a few other things that we might consider more important, such as neighborhoods and communities of interest. So to summarize, I would say, as long as we're under 10, or maybe we choose to pick a threshold of 8 50% variance, then a map that respects neighborhoods is more important than one with better variance, because people are voting for their interests in order to get a city council member who represents them.
Okay. Anyone else? On the question of,
Suppose that we go ahead and go map by map and we make that up as a decision based on our own personal views versus coming up with a criteria for the entire commission.
okay,
Make our own calls and our own arguments for and against it.
okay. So
Is that then what we're going to do?
Yeah, I think at this point, we've expressed sort of our high level thoughts on how we're going to evaluate these maps, and it's probably time to just start looking at the maps in specific. So
The process going forward will be that there is no agreement on high points and agreement on criteria. Instead, we'll all kind of come at the maps individually and see where we end up. Have I understood that?
I think so, yeah. So we'll start with the map on page E 1.4 of the agenda packet, number map public 102.
I can start if you like.
Sure, Commissioner Walter, why don't you get us started?
I may be wrong, but when I look at this one, it doesn't, District 2 and 2 especially doesn't feel easily identifiable to me. And I'm a little worried it breaks up a neighborhood, the kind of Linfield Oaks neighborhood.
Okay. Commissioner Earhart.
I would agree with the points that Commissioner Walter made.
Okay. That was my reaction as well.
Commissioner Val?
District 2, the blue portion crossing Middlefield, to me seemed to divide that the neighborhood on the, I guess, southwest side of Middlefield from the other portions of Linfield Oaks. So any other commissioners with thoughts on map public 102?
This is Commissioner Ballas. I agree with what's been said.
Okay. Okay. See a consensus forming on public map public 102. Any further comment on this one, or should we just move on to the next map?
Should we vote to exclude this map?
If we're ready to do that, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we remove 102.
Okay.
Map 102.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. We don't. I think we can just have. Yeah, we'll just do call for the vote. Ms. Sandoval, please state the motion and call for a vote.
Thank you, Chair. I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Walter and seconded by Commissioner Earhart to remove map 102 from further consideration. Are there any further commission discussion or questions?
I'll just so we're clear on what we're voting here. It's my rationale for I intend to vote to eliminate this map, and my specific rationale here is I think consistent with what Commissioner Walter stated. District 2 is drawn in a way that extends it beyond Middlefield Road and sort of cuts that Linfield Oaks neighborhood in two, and for that reason I think we can have a better map than what is presented. So I'll be voting in favor of the motion.
Thank you, Chair. Any further commission discussion or questions before we roll call vote?
This is Commissioner Saad. I think the only thing you guys have been discussing is, I think, can be summarized with one of the tenets of that are in front of us is the district boundaries must be geographically compact, and this is very diffuse. District 2 is very diffuse to that matter. So I think that should be clear for from that standpoint. That's only my comment. I'm ready to vote when you guys are.
Okay, thank you. Any further comment? Okay, Ms. Sandoval.
Okay, by roll call vote, Commissioner Ballas,
Yes.
Commissioner Earhart,
Yes.
Commissioner Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Saad,
Yes.
Commissioner Walter,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gilmer,
Yes.
and Chair Ariano.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, great. Thank you. So let's move to the next map found on page E 1.6 of the agenda, entitled Public 105. I see that it addresses the concern we had with the last map. Anyone want to kick us off with a comment on Public 105?
I have a thought. Public 105 is, I just wanted to comment, it seems to be a hybrid between the vertical and the following the previous districts. But in any event, it has a rather inelegant solution to the problem of Highway 101 division. So the border between 1 and 2 along Highway 101 seems to have a awkward way of including people on the other side, although I do recall there's a little bit of commercial in there as well. So we may not do any better if we want to increase the size of District 1. Nevertheless, that's a concern of mine, along with the fact that we have that terribly difficult census block that is along the creek in 4 and 5, which in this case is part of 5. And it creates a rather islandy part of 5, which would be hard for people to understand why they are not in the same district as their neighbors.
Any further yes, Commissioner Earhart, please.
I would agree with the points that Commissioner Hill made on this map.
Okay.
Chair Ariano,
Yes.
this is Commissioner.
Commissioner Saad, go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's also a noticeable diffusion in District 5, if you can see it on the map. So District 5 is kind of expanding to hug District 4 from both sides, and I'm not sure if this would be considered to be diffuse, i.e. not compact requirement as we're mandated to have.
Okay, so I was looking at that comment. Commissioner Walter, do you have a comment?
Go ahead. I was going to make a motion.
Okay, well, yeah, go. It's make a comment. Go ahead.
Actually, I have a comment that I'd like to make on the map before we have a motion on it. That's
Sure.
all right.
Go ahead, Vice Chair Gilmer.
In addition to some of the other items pointed out, I don't know if anybody noticed, but it also divides the south of Seminary Oaks neighborhood, which I think is something we'd like to avoid. The bump out on District 1 into 2 at the north corner is a zero population, the Bohannon Business Park area. So it looks like it's a chunk out of District 2, but there's actually zero population. But the small one out at near Flood Park, Flood Triangle, I think does have population. So I agree that that doesn't make sense.
I think we'll probably run into that sort of, I'll describe it as kind of like a sawtooth shape with a couple of other maps. But yeah, one thing I'm trying to look at is the in the agenda packet, page E1.30, we have the a map that shows population density by census block. And that does sort of, I guess, assuage some of my concerns about some of these irregularities. So like, if you look at the area of District 4 and District 5, I think it was Commissioner Assad who mentioned that sort of the area along the creek there. And then there was the area, I guess, north of Santa Cruz Avenue, sort of wraps around. And that looks a little bit odd. When you look at the census block population density, you see that there really just aren't very many people or houses are along that portion of, I guess, what is depicted on map 105 here as District 5. So I'm not terribly troubled by that. But you know, other than that, I think the maps. Okay. Any further comments or a motion? Commissioner Assad?
I apologize. I did not lower my hand from my previous question. Thank you.
Okay, anything further on map 105? Commissioner Earhart.
I was going to make a motion to remove map 105 from further consideration.
Okay, have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I will second, Commissioner Ballas.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. So Ms. Sandoval, please state the motion and call for a vote.
Thank you, Chair. I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Earhart and seconded by Commissioner Ballas to remove map 105 from further consideration. Are there any further commission discussion or questions? Okay, hearing none. By roll call vote, Commissioner Ballas,
Yes.
Commissioner Earhart,
Yes.
Commissioner Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Saad,
Yes.
Commissioner Walter,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gilmer,
Yes.
Chair Ariano.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. This is moving along nicely. The next map is map public 108, found on page E 1.8 of the agenda. Who would like to get us started?
I'll make the first comments on this one if you don't mind.
Okay, Vice Chair Gilmer, thank you. Go ahead.
This, and I know I'm starting to sound like a broken record. This has the bump out into District 2 at Flood that I'm not a huge fan of. It also seems to cut a portion of the south of Seminary Oaks neighborhood between District 3 and District 2, which I'm not in favor of breaking up a neighborhood like that, especially given that it's a rather small neighborhood of just a couple of streets. So I think it's good to keep that together. That's all my comments.
Okay. Anyone else? That's a question of the commission. Who's our, do we have anyone who lives in District 4?
I do. Commissioner Saad.
Commissioner Assad. I'd like to get some insight on the proposed boundary between District 4 and District 5 here. Can't quite place it over there along Middle and in Santa Cruz. What street is that?
I'm assuming this might be University Avenue.
It is. I double checked. I'm also in District 4.
Oh, so the dividing line, the north-south dividing line between 4 and 5 is University Avenue?
Correct.
I saw.
Yeah, part of it, right? It zigzags, yeah.
But then it zigzags as you can tell.
There's that like jog down Middle and then whatever that other street would be. Okay.
And that's true of the current districts as well.
Mhm. Okay. So we had the comments from Vice Chair Gilmer on that triangle in the flood park area, and then we have also that portion of, I'm not sure what that neighborhood is called, just north of Willow and east
Chair
of
Ariano, I'd like us to make the point that, which is, it was, that point was raised by Vice Chair Gilmer, that this map actually is the one that really meets the minimum variance at 4.3%.
Okay, so this is the lowest of our maps. Okay. Okay, and then let's see. Commissioner Ballas?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to second or echo Vice Chairman's comments on this map. It seems like there's, and in looking ahead, which I'm probably not allowed to do, but it seems like there are other maps that better fit what we're trying to do.
Okay. You are certainly allowed to look ahead. This is not a exam. Okay, so do we have a motion on this, or do we?
I will make the motion that we exclude this map from consideration, this Vice Chair.
Commissioner Ballas, I will second.
Okay, motion by Vice Chair Gilmer, second by Commissioner Ballas. Ms. Sandoval, please state the motion and call for a vote.
Thank you, Chair. Was that another comment from the commission?
Go ahead.
Okay. I have a motion on the floor by Vice Chair Gilmer and seconded by Commissioner Ballas to remove map 108 from further consideration. Are there any further commission discussion or questions? I think Commissioner Walter's hand is up.
Yeah, if it's
Yes.
okay. Just before I vote on this one, I have a question. Is B2 one of the maps we will go through in this process?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further commission discussion or questions on the current motion on the floor? Okay, seeing none, by roll call vote, Commissioner Ballas,
Yes.
Commissioner Earhart,
Yes.
Commissioner Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Saad,
Yes.
Commissioner Walter,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gilmer,
Yes.
Chair Ariano.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
I just now noticed that we've got two members of the public with their hands raised. And so I'm going to reopen the public hearing to allow public comment from the two individuals. And we will start with Val. Val, please go ahead. Val, I believe you're muted. Val, we can't hear you. If you want to but I see you've lowered your hand, so if you reconsider, I'll let you have another opportunity after we go to our next public comment from Joan Skurnick. Ms. Skurnick, please go ahead. City Clerk Karen, am I not operating this correctly?
No, Chair Ariano, you're correct. We
Okay.
have given Joan permission to talk in the Zoom. Joan, you should be able to unmute yourself. Commissioner, or excuse me, Chair Ariano, Joan is currently unmuted. I'm not sure why her audio is not coming through.
Just give her a second to perhaps sort out whatever technical.
Thank you all for your patience. So it does look like Joan is unmuted. However, there doesn't seem to be a microphone engaged. So Joan, you may either have to use or disuse a headset in order to make that public comment.
And we also have a phone number they can call in, right?
Yes.
Could you just say the phone number out loud, just in case that's an easier way for Ms. Skurnick to get a hold of us?
Yes. So the phone number to dial in to provide any comment is 669-900-6833. And the meeting ID is 879-8712-2918. So Joan, if you'd like, you can feel free to call in, and that's for any member of the public, and press *9 to engage that hand feature. Thank you.
And City Clerk Karen, will you just let us know if she has called in?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So I think what we'll do is leave the public hearing open for just another minute, and then we'll continue with our consideration. We'll be going to map 109 on page E 1.10 of the agenda next.
I'd like to ask a question about map 109 for clarification purposes. Is it geographically contiguous in District 2 with the section of District 1 seems to cut part of the portion off? Maybe it's just I can't see it well, but it looks like it's divided into two pieces.
Vice Chair Gilmer, there's a little of a corridor on the top of the bubble that connects it. So it doesn't, but otherwise, I don't think it would have made it to the public. Yeah.
Okay, I see that small.
Yeah.
It wasn't visible on the printed map. Thank you.
Okay, so I don't see any comments. So we'll close the public hearing and resume our discussion. We're at map public 109, page E 1.10 of the agenda. Who would like to get us started?
Commissioner Ballas, I'll start.
Okay, thank you.
So this one has some issues. I have some issues with the District 5, District 4 boundary, which is very serpentine. It also has that pop out on between District 1 and District 2, which while District 2 is still contiguous, is a very tiny bit of contiguousness there. So I'm, for those reasons, would not be in favor of this particular map.
Does anyone know what that sort of rectangular shaped piece of parcel between district or block rather between District 1 and District 2 is? Is that Flood Park?
No, it seems like it's just south of Flood Park.
Right.
An area with a population of approximately 400 people, I'd say.
So is it that neighborhood right off of Ringwood? Is that what that is? Looks like it. Okay. Commissioner Earhart?
Yes, I would agree with the points made by Commissioner Ballas. In addition, it also breaks up the willows. So similarly, this is not a boundary situation that is one of my favorites.
This is Vice Chair Gilmer. I concur exactly with the previous comments. The cutting up of the District 2 and the neighborhood of the Willows and flood triangle, I think makes this not an optimal map.
Anybody else? No. Yeah, I agree, and I'm happy to see a consensus forming around preserving our neighborhood boundaries. I think that, you know, after things like Middlefield and El Camino and 101, you know, we have neighborhoods that are probably as defining as anything in our city, and sort of reflects the way it was built out and reflects the way sort of people associate with you know, with one another. So I agree with that, and I like that that's sort of the general tenor of our conversation around these proposed maps. Commissioner Earhart?
I would like to make a motion to remove map 109 from further consideration.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Is that Commissioner Hill?
Commissioner Hill, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Motion and a second. Ms. Sandoval, please state the motion and call for a vote.
Thank you, Chair. I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Earhart and seconded by Commissioner Hill to remove map 109 from further consideration. Are there any further commission discussion or questions? Okay, hearing none, by roll call vote, Commissioner Ballas,
Yes.
Commissioner Earhart,
Yes.
Commissioner Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Saad,
Yes.
Commissioner Walter,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gilmer,
Yes.
Chair Ariano.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
So I do want to take a quick break. Should we do one more map and then a break, or would folks like to break now for a snack and visit restroom?
Chair Ariano, is there any public comments available at this point?
There are none.
Okay, then I'm in favor of a quick break.
Okay, so we will take a brief recess and reconvene at 6, let's say 6:40, 6-minute break.
And it looks like we have all of our commissioners returned in person and at our virtual dais. Chair Ayano, you may reconvene the meeting.
Okay, thanks. We'll call the meeting back to order at 6:41. We are on well, in case I haven't already done so, I'll formally close the public hearing because the members of the public who did have their hands raised do not appear to be here anymore. So with that, we'll bring the discussion back. And we are on page E1.12 of the agenda, map public 115. Would anybody like to get us started? Yes, Commissioner Earhart, please go ahead.
Thank you. I find this map interesting. My one concern is that it carves up the downtown neighborhood quite a bit. But I'm, like I said, I think there's a lot to like in this particular map, aside from that.
Thank you. Anyone, Commissioner Assad or alternate Commissioner Marquardt, could you guys, do either of you know what are the streets forming the boundaries between 3, 4, and 5? Looks like University Avenue again, between 3 and 4, but I'm trying to place the street that separates districts 4 and 5.
If I can, it looks like it might be Hillview.
Yeah, I think it's Cotton, which runs right by Hillview.
Hillview and Olive, from what I can tell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chair, may I speak to this?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I second Commissioner Urquhart likes of the map. I think it definitely meets the less than 2%. It's at 8.28%. And also it preserves District 1 without any divots or sawtooth shapes. So it keeps District 2 as well combined. I think what it does, just to address that's my hypothesizing here, is that it tried to split the downtown between 2 different districts. So there's a balance in that sense, and namely between 3 and 4, District 3 and 4. Otherwise, it looks to meet most of the criteria in front of us on the screen, which I definitely think that I would be in favor of this advancing with us, this map. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
This is Vice Chair Gilmer.
Sure.
My only comment, it's a pretty significant departure from the current districts, especially in the District 3 areas. And I'm wondering, and I could use clarification, does this split up the Allied Arts neighborhood, or is that contained in District 3?
I believe it's contained in District 3, but someone maybe more familiar with that neighborhood could weigh in.
If I may say one thing, you're right, Vice Chair Gilmer, is now the Allied Arts have moved to District 3 instead of District 4 in this map.
Oh, I see. Right. Yeah, this was one of the maps that sort of represent that concept of a vertical district. So you know, it does reflect a change. But it does also ameliorate some of our issues with the previous maps, namely the boundary between 1 and 2 and preserving the Willows and Seminary Oaks neighborhoods. And so I do like that aspect of it. And I think that the difference is how we all feel about the new shape of what would be District 4.
Question, this is Commissioner Ballas. What, does anyone know the outline of Allied Arts? Because that is a pretty strong community neighborhood.
So the neighborhood maps are on page E 1.29, 1.29 of our packet. And Allied Arts is certainly preserved, but it does move from District
Correct.
4 to District 3.
So Allied Arts is number 5 on
Right.
page E 1.29, and completely agree that it's, although it got shifted to District 3, but it moved as a whole.
If I can also point out, it moves Felton Gables into, I believe, District 4 from District 3.
Okay. And then the boundary,
You said Felton Gables?
the east.
Sorry, Felton Gables, which is at the northern,
Right.
is moved, it looks like, from District 2 to District 3.
I would say District 4 in this map.
Is that, sorry, you're right, District 3 to District 4, my mistake.
What is the boundary between 3 and 4? The east-west boundary, or I guess the northeast southwest boundary, is that Ravenswood? The part that crosses the
I thought
Yes.
it was Ravenswood.
Yes, it's Ravenswood and Menlo.
Oh yeah, because it's just on the south side of Santa Cruz. Okay. Any other comments or reflections on this map?
There may be some appeal to keeping it in for now. It doesn't mean we're ultimately for it.
Chair, I can make a motion to advance this map.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Saad. Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Hill. I'll second that.
Okay, second by Commissioner Hill. Thank you. Ms. Sandoval, will you please state the motion and call for a vote?
Commissioner Saad, can you restate the motion one more time, please?
I make a motion to advance map number 1-115 and to keep it with us as for future reconsideration.
Thank you. I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Saad and seconded by Commissioner Hill to advance map 115-115 and to keep that map under consideration. Are there any further commission discussion or questions?
I have one comment, which is just if I'm just comparing 115 to 117, which we'll look at next, and they are similar in a lot of respects, except that 117 adheres more closely to the existing boundaries. So I don't know if that just wanted to make that comment before we vote on continuing 115. So I think 117 is a better version of 115.
Okay, and I also have a comment. This is the first time we've made the observations or comparisons between the proposed map and the current districts. And I would be remiss if I did not point out the language in the statute that says, and this is under the definition of community of interest, communities of interest do not include relationships with political parties, incumbents, or political candidates. So I recall, I don't remember who exactly from the public made the point of the existing council districts and the relationships that folks may have established with their existing representatives could constitute a community of interest. That actually is not something that we can consider in terms of how we determine the districts that we are recommending for the next 10-year cycle. So with that, I'm ready to vote. So go ahead, Ms. Sandoval.
Okay, thank you, Chair Ariano. By roll call vote, Commissioner Ballas,
Yes.
Commissioner Earhart,
Yes.
Commissioner Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Saad,
Yes.
Commissioner Walter. I'm sorry, could you repeat, Commissioner Walter?
Yes.
Vice Chair Gilmer
Yes.
and Chair Ariano.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay. On to map 1, public 117, found on page E 1.14 of the agenda. And I will let alternate Commissioner Marquardt get us started.
Thank you. I think my concern is around the El Camino delineation on the map, where it cuts both sides for districts 3 and 4 for no reason that I really understand.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, Commissioner Marquardt? I didn't understand you.
Yeah, my concern is around the El Camino area. Part of it is now in District 3, part of it's in District 4. We have what looks like Alma for part of the 3 to 4 boundary delineation, and then a part of downtown is now moved into District 3. And I'm not sure I like that El Camino is now split up in this way.
I'm looking at that, but I did also want to add the comment around proposed District 2 would move part of the south of Seminary Vintage Oaks neighborhood out of, or separate that neighborhood where it crosses Willow. And so that to me doesn't preserve that community of interest. And I'm just trying to think about what is in that square shaped portion between District 3 and District 4. Are those all, is there any residential? Is there any residential in there? I mean, I'm picturing the businesses near the train station and the McDonald's and the Kinko FedEx Center. And
Well, to answer your question, the section that is now District 4 shown on the east side of El Camino along Alma has no population, but the section of District 3 on the west side of El Camino has a large population.
yeah, it's just the Caltrain corridor, right?
I think between El Camino and Alma is where the new buildings are going up near the Stanford Park Hotel. And those, I think, do have some resident, or will have some residents.
Mr. Sands, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, Chair Ariano, we did make some updates to the web map after the last meeting. So if you'd like me to put that on the screen, I'd be glad to do that. We could overlay neighborhoods and the proposed district boundaries if you'd like to pursue that option.
Sure, let's do that, and maybe just keep the criteria up so we can toggle between the two if people need just to refer back to that. Yeah, but yeah, now based on your comment, Commissioner Walter, I'm starting to think about that strip of El Camino with the new developments. So I guess would that fit in better with what we would consider the downtown community in this proposed map? That seems reasonable enough to me.
Chair Ariano, may I make a comment?
Sure.
Yeah, I think now that you've clarified, I agree with you that with the proposed actually ongoing development next to Stanford Inn and on El Camino and the new development, which is the new mall plus residential. I think as I expressed before, I'm very pro economic equality between districts. And I think this gives District 4 a little bit, quite a bit of economic power in terms of a representative on the council, especially with the proposed, as I said, the old Tesla showroom, which is now the development, the mall plus residential, in addition to having a big chunk of Santa Cruz Avenue, which is a major economic artery of Menlo Park.
May I make a comment?
Sure, go ahead, Vice Chair Gilmer.
So a couple of things I'd like to point out. This map is actually one of the highest variance from ideal at 8.97%. And I know that we're working off the 2020 census, but since the idea was brought up that there will be additional residential in that area, that district seems to be the largest already, and adding additional residential to that would push us over the 10% in the future. Now, it's probably not a consideration for now, but it is the largest. District 4 is already the largest by population size. That's all.
Yeah, I certainly recognize that consideration. I'm wondering about this portion of, I mean, still talking District 4, the portion here in West Menlo between Valparaiso and Santa Cruz Avenue. Is there a, compared to the other maps, is there, you know, like, was it Hillview that was the border between the last map we looked at, 115, and this one?
Yes.
Yeah, that to me feels like, I mean, I don't know how much that would move the needle in terms of population balance, but feels like, you know, not a horrible border, but different border, but for proposed District 4, but I don't know if that will alter the population balance too much.
I'm wondering when I look across, it's getting complex, but when I look across, kind of the next four, I feel like we're going to want to keep something, well, at least one of this flavor. And then maybe what we do is ask Gionovo, we keep one or two of them and we say to Gionovo, can you solve these few things we love about it?
Right, right.
Commissioner.
So are there a few things that we would change about 117? I mean, I was just sort of wondering aloud. I don't really have anything in the way of a suggestion.
Commissioner, Chair Ariano, I would ask you to take a look at attachment C, because attachment C is a better improvement, or is most probably addresses most of the concerns that most of the commissioners have raised about 117.
What page?
C.
That attachment C was current district.
What is attachment C, Commissioner Assad?
I thought Commission's attachment C was, I apologize. I thought attachment C was the one of the proposed maps. It seems like it's the current map of the districts.
Can I throw out a motion as a trial?
Oh, yes. Okay. So just 1 second. So what was the?
So I thought that
around attachment C.
Oh, I was proposing, I thought attachment C is one of the proposed maps for consideration. I just realized it's just the current districting of Menlo Park. So
Okay.
I withdraw my comment.
Okay. Okay. And then I believe it was Vice Chair Gilmer who had something to say.
No, I made my comment. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, Commissioner Walter, please go ahead.
Try this. I don't know if it'll work, but could I move that we keep 1117, but we ask Gionovo to lower the variance, to propose ways to lower the variance below 7%.
I have the variance for 117 at 8.97. So you want to lower it below 7%?
Right. Challenge them to find something that, so that, yeah, the motion would be we keep 117, but we ask Gionovo to try to do something very similar, but lower our population deviation below 7.
Do you suppose that the Gionovo map, the one that's B2, which has a variance of a little over 6.5, might be that answer?
May. Oh, no, it splits 4 and 5 quite differently. Maybe.
Oh, so you're talking about a very small change.
Yeah, I'm looking for a very small change.
Commissioner Walter, I ask you to look, please, at map 120. I think that would address your concern.
Map.
Map 120 seems to be
I see.
an improved version of 117.
8% variance. And a little bit of a weird line between 4 and 5, like a curvy line. I don't, maybe that's the street. Yeah, no, yep, we could have them work off
Yeah.
120 and get that below. I agree, that's pretty darn close, those two.
Okay. Right, and on 117, it does, again, split that south of Seminary neighborhood.
Oh, it does, okay.
So, thoughts from the commission? Hold off on this one for now, move to the next one?
I
Seems like we-
suggest we consider 120, and then after considering 120, we make a decision whether to drop both or keep one and advance one.
Okay. Just to maybe. Any thoughts on that, anybody? Thumbs up, nodding heads.
I would agree with that. This is
Okay.
Commissioner Earhart.
Okay, so 117 is a definite maybe.
There you go.
So we'll move to 1120, public one map, public 120,
Yep.
found on page E 1.16 of the agenda.
I would still raise the same concern about District 4, that it's economically a little more powerful than the rest of the districts when it comes to the development on El Camino, Old Tesla showroom, and then Santa Cruz. But other than this, I think 120 map 120 is a better improvement, is an enhanced version of 117. If I were to make a choice, I would keep 120 and drop 117. That's my opinion. Thank you.
So unless I'm missing something, the only difference between public 117 and public 120 is the Willow Road, south of Seminary neighborhood, and then a slightly smaller District 4, moving some of that census blocks to District 5. I don't really know where that is. But are there any other differences between the two maps?
Can you explain the Willow Road south of Seminary District?
It's a better, in terms of population variation, it's a slight improvement by 1%.
Okay. Commissioner Walter, in map public 120, the boundary between District 2 and District 3 is basically Willow Road and Coleman. And on map public 117, there's a portion of the south of Seminary neighborhood, which is just on the other side of Willow Road. It's like that rectangle shape that becomes part of District 3 as opposed to District 2. I'm sorry, that becomes part of District 2 as opposed to District 3.
Okay.
I think it's like maybe between Gilbert and Middlefield and probably like Santa Margarita or something like that.
I see it. Oh, yeah, I couldn't see it on the page, but I see it on the screen now. Yeah, that's not desirable.
And what are the proposed north, or I guess east-west boundaries on between 4 and 5 on map public 120?
I personally having a hard time determining this unless someone has the actual.
Oh, it looks like Alex, Mr. Sands has the map. So could you, Mr. Sands, could you zoom in on that?
I think it's Arbor Street.
Arbor, okay. And then what about on map 117?
Yeah, I think it's San Mateo Drive on 120.
It is, it's San Mateo Drive.
San Mateo Drive on 120 and Arbor on 117.
Chair Ariano, on 117, that border there would be Cotton Street, and then on 120 it would be San Mateo Drive.
Oh, okay. So not Arbor.
120 is a very nice map with the exception of the 8% variance.
San Mateo or 117, Mr. Sands, the border between District 4 and 5 was Cotton?
That is correct.
Correct. Correct.
I have a comment on 120. I like this better than 117. I'll state that to begin with. I'm wondering, and what we're talking about changes, the population in District 3 is pretty significant. And I'm wondering if by moving south of Seminary Oaks, which is about 4 census blocks, to District 2, if that wouldn't help balance things out a bit better. But that's just a suggestion.
Yeah, I agree. It'd be hard to live with an 8% variation without at least seeing some other options.
Any ideas on how we might massage the borders then?
I think that might be something to ask Geo Innovo.
I think we would help them based using our sort of local knowledge of the neighborhoods though. So if we could give them maybe specific places to look at, her specific areas to look at moving census blocks. So do you guys want to focus on map 120 in terms of minor modifications?
Yes.
Okay, so let's, why don't you get us started, Commissioner Walter?
The between 3 and 2, is that Coleman, the kind of the horizontal between 3 and 2?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, what if you, could one idea be to bump that up a little more? So put a little more in 3. Go to the next street up or sorry, we're looking for less than 3. Bring it down, we'd have to bring it down a block. Is that what you were saying, Brian? Or?
Yeah, my suggestion was on this map to reduce the size of District 3 by a small number. Wouldn't be to move Coleman because that has a very large population of about 1,000.
Right.
But to move the south of Seminary Oaks, which is a 4 consensus block, which includes Santa Monica, Santa Margarita, on both sides of Gilbert. That would be a smaller portion. If we move that into District 2, it would balance it out a little bit better, I believe.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's done in map 117, right? More or less?
No, 117 actually only moves a portion of that neighborhood, half of it about.
Right, so if you can picture that section of Menlo Park between, what is it, Santa Margarita and Willow, down to what looks like Gilbert, I suppose, and moving those 2 blocks over to District 2 and out of District 3. Mr. Sands.
Yes, Chair Adriano, to Vice Chair Gilmer's point, moving a couple of those blocks there in the south of Seminary and Vintage Oaks neighborhood, if we move a couple of blocks there, we can get District 2 and 3 to be almost equal in population. Again, it's not going to be an exact match, but that variance of about 450, 460-ish would drop down to a difference of less than, I would say in the range of 30 to 40.
And then how about our overall variation then? Does it come down from 8%?
It would come down from 8%. I'd have to do that calculation just to see exactly what the variation would be. But it would be lower. It would be lower by just as a, as a guess, without doing the calculation, it probably dropped from about 8% right now to maybe probably somewhere in the mid to high sixes.
And I believe, and maybe somebody who's got more knowledge of the neighborhood than I do, those 4 census blocks do form their own unique neighborhood, which is not Coleman and it's not Seminary Oaks, but it's the 4 census blocks that form south of Seminary Oaks. The boundaries being Middlefield Road, Coleman Avenue, Santa Monica, and Willow Road.
Yep.
So I just wanted to point out, as I'm looking at the map, that boundary between 3 and 2 is not Coleman Avenue. It's the South Perimeter Road for the VA. So Coleman is completely in District 3 right now.
Okay.
Sorry, I think that's correct. And I think you have to leave it because of the size of the population on Coleman. It's apartments with a high density population.
Oh, okay.
Novo, can you check if we take Coleman and put it in District 2, do we throw everything out?
Yeah, yes, Commissioner Walter, if we were to take that block between Perimeter and Coleman, we're talking about moving pretty close to 1,000 people. So that one block is more than double the population of all the other 4 blocks that were mentioned by Vice Chair Gilmer.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner, this is Susan. That block between Coleman and Premier Road has been sort of an anchor that has just a lot of people. So Alex is right, and so is Commissioner Gilmore in that we really can't move that, and if we do, it's going to force us to modify a lot more geography than just 4 or 5 blocks that we're talking about right now. We've tried, trust me.
So with Coleman, not feasible. Can you guys give us a preview of how the maps or the districts would look if we were to move the 2 blocks between Santa Monica Avenue on the north and Willow Road on the south over to District 2?
Sure, we could do that.
For clarification, are you talking Santa Monica to Willow and Gilbert to Middlefield, or Nash to Middlefield? I'm not clear.
I guess I don't know where what the block boundaries are.
Well, 2 blocks or 4 blocks? If you're the 2 small square blocks are between Nash and Gilbert.
Right, I'm talking census blocks, not street blocks.
No, so am I. There's census blocks in the in Districtor.
Okay.
That's correct, Chair Adriano. Vice Chair Gilmer is noting that there's 2 census blocks there between Nash and Gilbert.
Okay. So I don't know. What does the map say?
Normally, we would try to keep them together because it's a natural border along Santa Monica. And it is also within the neighborhood of South Seminary up into Oaks. So if we're going to move several blocks, we should move them all together. So
Okay.
keep them all together or move them all together. But we'll do our best to see what we can do once we narrow it down to the maps that you guys are selecting.
Hi, this is Commissioner Ballas. If instead you take the 2 blocks that are along between Santa Margarita and Willow, then you wouldn't interfere with the seminary neighborhood or surrounding seminary, and you get close to the numbers you want.
Sure, actually, if we took that approach, we could actually balance the population between District 2 and 3 very closely, if that's something that the commission would be open to.
So could you clarify what that approach would be? Because we've talked about.
So that approach being moving the 2 census blocks between Middlefield and Gilbert, and bounded on the east and west by Santa Margarita and Willow.
Okay.
If we take those blocks and move them into District 2, the population of the 2 districts would become roughly equal. I mean, we're talking about a difference of less than 50 at that point, rather than 500.
Okay, so that is 2 blocks between Gilbert and Middlefield and Santa Monica and Willow, not 4.
No, Santa Margarita.
Oh, Santa Margarita.
Yeah.
Doesn't that effectively divide South Seminary Oaks in half?
Yeah.
Exactly. So like Jesus mentioned, that would be a, kind of a give and take that we'd have to balance there, just depending on the input from the commission.
But it keeps the seminary down.
So maybe maybe 120 as presented really is the best.
Quick question. Is there any percentage in trying to look at the other end of District 3? In examining the difference between 117 and 120, there's a slightly larger protuberance, so to speak, out of 3 into 4. And we might be able to balance the population being too large in 3 by changing the shape of that little bit.
So in what is the street boundary, Mr. Sands or Mr. Garcia, between 3 and 4 on the west side of El Camino?
I think it's Oak Grove, Chair.
Oak Grove.
This is where the post office is.
It's Oak Grove in 120, but it's Santa Cruz in 117.
And then what about on the east-west boundary? Same?
I thought they were identical between the 2 maps.
That is correct. The east-west boundary would be Crane Street.
Crane, okay.
Oh, and this is Jesus, and in the downtown area, there are a lot of blocks with minimal to 0 population.
Mm-hmm.
Just, and I know Alex went through with that at the beginning of our session here. So we can be creative in that, but at the same time, it'd be great to have major streets that people recognize in the downtown region. And that's one of the things that I try to do in the vertical map that we'll be discussing later on. I can expand on that later.
So we're spinning our wheels a little bit between these 2 maps. So and we've got, let's see, 1. Three more to consider, is that correct?
If I may, I'd like to make a motion that based on our discussion, we reject map 117 because it sounds like that one is pretty much being unliked per 120, and that we move 120 forward for future discussion.
This is Commissioner Saad. I would second that.
Okay, that actually simplifies things. So we have a motion and a second. Ms. Sandoval, please state the motion and call for the vote. This is to eliminate set 117, I guess.
Actually, it seems to be dual motion, right? That eliminate 117 and advance 120. Or should we do it in 2 different motions?
Well, I believe were we going to potentially modify 120?
Got it.
Yes, let's make them. I'll make the motion, or I'll restate the motion to eliminate map 117 from consideration.
And this Commissioner Saad, I second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sandoval, please state the motion and call for the vote.
Thank you, Chair Ariano. I have a motion on the floor by Vice Chair Gilmer and seconded by Commissioner Saad to remove map 117 from further consideration. Is there any further commission discussion or questions? Okay, hearing none, by roll call vote, Commissioner Ballas,
Yes.
Commissioner Earhart,
Yes.
Commissioner Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Saad,
Yes.
Commissioner Walter,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gilmer,
Yes.
and Chair Ariano.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
okay. So,
Sorry.
any further discussion on 120 in terms of either advancing it or asking the demographers to modify the boundaries?
Make a motion that we move 120 forward for consideration.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Ballas. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Gilmer. Ms. Sandoval, please state the motion and call for a vote.
Thank you, Chair. I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Ballas and seconded by Vice Chair Gilmer to advance map 120 for further consideration. Is there any further commission discussion or question? Hearing none, by roll call vote, Commissioner Ballas,
Yes.
Commissioner Earhart,
Yes.
Commissioner Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Saad,
No.
Commissioner Walter,
Yes.
Commissioner Walter, was that a yes? Your audio is coming out a little.
Yes.
Thank you. Vice Chair Gilmer
Yes.
and Chair Ariano.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes with Commissioner Saad dissenting.
Okay. So we have two maps advancing.
If I may, I would like to make another motion
Okay.
that we ask Genovo to address the concerns that we've discussed on map 120 and create one or two alternate maps that address those concerns, primarily that being the population disparity between districts 2 and 3 in the south of Seminary Oaks neighborhood. And I'm not sure if there were other issues that we wanted to address. I'll open that up to anybody else who might have, but I would like to make a motion that we ask Genovo to make some modifications and present two additional maps.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, motion by Vice Chair Gilmer, second by Commissioner Walter. Ms. Sandoval, please state the motion and call for a vote.
All righty. If I could, which commissioner seconded this motion?
Walter.
Walter, thank you very much. I have a motion by Vice Chair Gilmer and seconded by Commissioner Walter to provide direction to Genovo to make changes to map 120 based on the discussion the commission has had this evening. Are there any further commission discussion or questions?
Question just for the demographers. Are you comfortable with the level of direction we provided?
I would say that we can make the changes provided with for one map without taking population from other areas of District 2 or 3. I'm not sure if we could create two specifically with those in the area of the south of Seminary and Vintage Oaks neighborhood.
Okay. So
may I clarify?
Sure.
My understanding of the discussion was including 2 of the census blocks in the south of Seminary Oaks and including all 4 of the census blocks in south of Seminary Oaks and seeing how the population adjusted based on that.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Vice Chair Governor. We can certainly forward both those options for you.
Okay, great. So now we're ready for the vote.
Okay. Roll call vote. Commissioner Ballas,
Yes.
Commissioner Earhart,
Yes.
Commissioner Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Saad,
No.
Commissioner Walter,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gilmer,
Yes.
Chair Ariana.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes with Commissioner Saad dissenting.
Okay, so that brings us to map public 121 found at page E1.18 of the agenda.
Chair, may I speak to this map?
Sure, go ahead, please.
I think I'm looking at District 1. First, we have I believe this is the flood triangle on the left-hand side of the map that's protruding. That I don't have big problem with this, but I can see that there's kind of a handlebar mustache shape on the center of the map, and that cuts somehow District 2 in almost. I know there's still a corridor, but makes it very weird shape type of district. For that reason, I am not in favor of this map. Although I have to mention, just in all fairness, that this is the second best variance from ideal that we have. It's at 4.7% in terms of population.
Right. What is that? If either other members of the commissioner are demographers, what is in that sort of like claw shape, handlebar mustache, as Commissioner Saad described it, shape of District 1?
If it's all right, I can address that because I looked at this closely when I was evaluating this map. And that little section is actually an interesting section in that it has a lot in common with the Bellhaven neighborhood, in that many of the houses, I believe many or all of the houses in it are part of the Ravenswood School District. And it's also a majority minority section. And it's the only way to increase, well, sorry, it's not the only way, but it is one of the more direct ways to increase the population of District 1 by going across for this little section that has a lot in common with that, with the District 1 neighborhoods. So I think that's what that section is.
Can I also comment on the geography a little bit? It's obviously, when you look at it, it's a cloverleaf part of Highway 101. And again, the US Census Bureau has reduced by 250,000 the number of census blocks that were here in 2010. And so normally in 2010, many of the clover leaves and off-ramps would actually be designated as a census block. It was done in part to eliminate the possibility of being able to disclose individuals. So it's become a problem with better technology and mapping, and so this is actually one of the reasons why we have more of these cloverleaf freeways. It's also a very big problem in some of our more rural areas. So we're going to see more of this as we go forward, and so it's again, it's part of trying to keep the anonymity of individuals that live in those particular areas.
Okay. How do other commissioners feel about District 2 having this protrusion? I understand. Thank you, Vice Chair Gilmer for explaining the background in terms of cultural and community of interest extension. But is there any concern from District 2 that it would split the district, almost split the district in half?
I don't love the message it sends. It kind of says, yeah, I think we can do better.
It seems to be an unnecessary increase of the number of people in District 1 for the sake of a very low variance when we have better maps that have higher but still acceptable variance.
I would agree with those points. And it also looks like it's only pulling in part of the VA property and not all of it. So it's splitting up that community as well, from the way it appears.
Okay. Any other areas about this map that, well?
Commissioner Ballas, the District 5 boundary has also been modified to include, I guess, maybe a riparian district or something, but it's got this odd little hook, which I'm not sure people would be too keen on.
Commissioner Ballas, are you talking about the serpentine shape? And so
Yes, I am.
As we have discussed before, it has no zero population. Actually, when we looked at the population, I've tried and myself when I was playing around a little bit with the district mapping tool, and this comes as one area, one census block, from up on where you see the orange. So if you want to make the numbers close, you end up always with that serpentine shape, and we've seen it in other maps. So just in all fairness, and then as we looked at the population density, this has zero population density, so it has no implication in terms of effect on the population.
Okay.
Okay. So did we have a formal motion? Forgive me, I don't recall.
I moved to drop a map 121 from consideration.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Saad, seconded by Commissioner Earhart. Ms. Sandoval, please state the motion and call for a vote.
Thank you, Chair. We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Saad and seconded by Commissioner Earhart to remove map 121 from further consideration. Is there any further commission discussion or questions? Okay, hearing none. By roll call vote, Commissioner Ballas,
Yes.
Commissioner Earhart. Commissioner Earhart, I think you're muted.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Saad,
Yes.
Commissioner Walter,
Yeah.
Vice Chair Gilmer.
No.
Chair Ariano.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes with Vice Chair Gilmer dissenting.
Okay. So that brings us to, I believe, the last of the publicly submitted maps in our packet. Map 124, found on page E 1.20 of the agenda packet. And does anybody want to start us off? I mean, I think just in contrast to the previous map, it's basically the same map without that portion of cloverleaf as Mr. Garcia described it at the right off the Willow Road interchange, moving back into District 2 and having a more regular shaped boundary between Districts 1 and 2. Everything else appears to be the same.
This is Vice Chair Gilmer. My only concern with this one, it's been the same concern I've had with others, is that it's cutting the south of Seminary Oaks in half along Santa Margarita.
Commissioner Ballas, and that triangle, as we've mentioned before, has no population in it, so it really should go back into, 2 so that 1 doesn't cross the freeway.
Commissioner Hill, I don't think this map is bringing us a lot of value. Shall we consider a motion?
Sure. Is there a motion?
I will make a motion to discard 124.
Okay.
I second that motion, Commissioner Saad.
So we have a motion and a second. Ms. Sandoval, please state the motion and call for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. So I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Hill and a second by Commissioner Saad to remove map 124 from further consideration. Any further commission discussion or question?
I would just, to Commissioner Hill, could you just elaborate on what you mean by this map does not seem to be bringing us a lot of value?
What I meant was that we have maps that seem to respect the neighborhoods a little bit better, although that one is pretty good in that regard. And then also that bring it up again. I already threw it on the floor. And also that this one is one of the attempts to get very close to the current districts, but doesn't offer an improvement except to the, as I say, the variance.
If I can add a comment. I'm not sure I agree. I think this map actually, in my personal opinion, looks pretty good with a couple of minor changes, mainly to the south of Seminary Oaks. And maybe we should take a look at the boundary between districts 4 and 5 to see if that splits any neighborhoods. But the rest of the map to me looks like it's a pretty good map. And it also has, in my opinion, a very good variation from the ideal. So I would actually support keeping this map for consideration.
This is Commissioner Ballas. I agree with that. I think we should keep it and look at it because I like, from a District 4 or 5 standpoint, I'd like to take a closer look at those boundaries, but they look pretty good. And I think it fits the other criteria pretty well. Again, with the change of moving that little triangle back into District 1, since there's no population in it.
So let's just discuss it a little bit further before we maybe force a vote, because I think, well, I share certainly the question about the boundary between 4 and 5. So those of us who are a little bit more familiar with that, can you tell from the map where that boundary is?
Yeah, so if we go from the creek side, it looks like we have a piece of Olive and then it jumps up to Hobart.
Okay.
And then it moves over to Cotton. And I wonder if we could just have Olive straight down and move those blocks into District 4.
I'm sorry,
Olive to Hobart and then Cotton?
I'm sorry, I don't believe it's Cotton. I believe it's Hillview from what I can.
Hillview, you're right. The portion I thought we could try moving is the middle portion where it jumps up. That's the Hobart portion where we could try to align it down to Olive.
Oh, I see.
So may I suggest that if we compare 124 to 120, that we requested some modification, that 120 offers, especially in respect to District 3, 4, and 5, it provides a better divide between 4 and 5. 3 is the same, and then we have a better divide between 4 and 5 with a good share of 4 from Santa Cruz and 5 from Santa Cruz as well.
Can you elaborate on why you think the divide is better?
Because what it does, if I'm looking at 120, it keeps, I'm looking also at the current map. It keeps the current divide of 120, I'm speaking of 120. 120 keeps almost the same divide of that is currently portrayed in for District 4.
Sure.
And that this brings a change that I find unnecessary.
If you look at the neighborhood overlay on this map, it seems like it's dividing the downtown, the Allied Arts into District 4 and West Menlo into District 5. Is anybody familiar with those neighborhoods? Can they speak where the dividing lines are for those distinct neighborhoods?
I'm sorry, say it again, which ones?
For where West Menlo, so the neighborhoods in that area, it seems like it's West Menlo would be in District 5, downtown and Allied Arts / Stanford Park would be in District 4. But I'm not familiar with that area as well as I probably should be, and I don't know where the neighborhood boundaries begin and end.
Well, either one of these maps splits West Menlo. They just split it in a different way. Right. So 120 splits West Menlo at Santa Cruz Avenue. And map 124
so Vice Chair Gilmore, 120 is it's more conforming with the current districts, and then both of them have the Allied Art within District 4. Same for 124. The divide is, as Commissioner Ballas have said, is the divide, I think across, we said Olive is the perpendicular to Santa Cruz in this case, in 124.
And 124 has them split at Cotton between Santa Cruz and Middle.
Is anybody familiar with the neighborhood West Menlo as to where it actually begins and ends? Not on the map, but
Yeah, it looks like, so on the east, northeast, it goes like, let's see, I believe it's Arbor Road, and then it follows Arbor, and then it takes a right down Santa Cruz to Johnson. So that's that. That would be the north and east border. And then it extends north-south from the creek to Valparaiso. So there's that, I forget the name of that park that not Nealon Park, but the smaller one along Middle Avenue.
Lyle.
Yes, Lyle. So once you pass Lyle, that becomes the West Menlo.
So it looks like there's really no way to avoid cutting that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Population.
I think that's true. The question is, which is the better way to split it? that's why I think 124 deserves to move forward.
I agree. I tend to like 124 as well.
Okay. Any further discussion on 124?
Yeah.
Was that Commissioner Ballas?
This is Commissioner Ballas. Can I make a motion that we continue, that we move 124 forward for further discussion?
So we still have a motion on the table from Commissioner Hill to reject 124.
I can withdraw it
Okay,
if that would help.
sure.
Then I withdraw it.
Thank you. And Commissioner Ballas, I believe you had a motion.
Okay, now I'd like to move that we move 124 further forward for further discussion.
Okay, is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Gilmer. Ms. Sandoval, Ms. Herron, please state the motion and call for a vote.
Thank you, Chair. We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Ballas and seconded by Vice Chair Gilmer to advance map 124 for further consideration. Is there any further commission discussion or question? Hearing none, by roll call vote, Commissioner Ballas,
Yes?
Commissioner Earhart,
Yes.
Commissioner Hill,
Abstain.
Commissioner Saad,
No.
Commissioner Walter,
The motion one more time?
Advance 124.
Yes.
Vice Chair Gilmer,
Yes.
Chair Ariano.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes with Commissioner Hill abstaining and Commissioner Saad dissenting.
Okay, so we have one more map to consider this evening. This is the only map prepared by our demographers. It is map, it's called Plan B2, found on page E 1.24 of the agenda. And who would like to get us started?
This is Commissioner Hill. I would guess as we consider this map, we'd want to compare it to map 115. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. The other vertical, what we call vertical district.
Yeah, my sense was that B2 was intended to be maybe an expert type of version of this vertical. And that if we like this one, we might see if there's anything from 115 that we might want to apply to it. Otherwise, we may be able to set aside 115 and stick with 3 maps.
Mr. Sands or Mr. Garcia, could you talk to me a little bit more about the boundary between District 2 and District 3, and specifically how you divided the Willows neighborhood?
Well, again, this is, Alice, you want to go or you want me to go?
You can go ahead.
Okay. Well, as you can see with this map, we kept the Delhavy neighborhood together using the freeway. And then we tried to make District 2 as reasonable looking or compact as possible. So by doing that, we extended out from Seminary Village into the Willows neighborhood to try to achieve better balance. Now we do have that little snake of a block that kind of meanders along the riparian there with the river. And again, we have about 3 or 4 of those. And so in whatever map we pick, we're probably going to see a version or 2 of that. As you can see in District 3, it's very compact. Try to keep it, again, as compact as possible to include the Linfield neighborhood and as much of the Allied Arts area in downtown as possible. Now, I think as Commissioner Saad has mentioned with map 115, our goal with this was also to try to give different commissioners an opportunity to represent the business industries, in particular, not only the downtown, but the growing diversity of housing and that that's appearing throughout. So I know District 5 is a little long. It goes up along the river there, but again, it has to do with the population to try to keep it as even as possible. So, but again, in this case, we have again 3, 4, and 5 get different pieces of the downtown communities. And again, I know that was an interest of one of the Chamber of Commerce people who spoke at I think 1 or 2 meetings ago. And so we wanted to respect the business community's interest in having representation of downtown. So it's kind of a neat district, I think. It's compact compared to some of the others, and the numbers are pretty good. So again, it's a variation on a theme and of interest that we've heard from business and other commissioners, and that was the intent of this map here. And I also particularly like District 2. It eliminates a lot of the variation that we've seen in that district. So I hope that answered. Any other questions?
The only thing I would add there, Chair Ariano, the only thing I would add there is we just to build on Jesus's point, we did create this B2 not only based on feedback that we received for Public 115, and also, as this was mentioned, the feedback from the Chamber of Commerce, but there was also 2 other maps that ended up not being viable. That had a similar concept. So seeing that many submissions with this vertical concept, we just thought it would be a good idea to at least present this to the commission for your consideration.
What is the boundary between districts 3 and 4? I guess 3 and 4 and 5. But is that university? And then same question for the boundary between 2 and 3.
I'm adding the street layer too, because I have it open on my computer. Alex, if you have it, that'd be great as well.
Yeah, I'm actually double checking that right now. The yes, so Chair Ariano, to your question, 5 meet is university.
Okay.
And then in regards to District 2, I'm sorry, what was your question for District 2 again?
Same question. What are the boundaries?
So
between 2
Coleman, which then goes, it turns north-south on Santa Monica, which then turns east-west on Gilbert. And then that last turn there is going to be a north-south turn on Marmona Drive.
Okay. Okay. Any comments from the commission on this map?
Chair Ariano, this is Commissioner Saad. I spoke initially in favor of the vertical design because I explained the economic representation behind it on the council, so it's balanced. But in all fairness, I believe that B2 is a better version of 115. And if other commissioners have the same tendency towards B2, I can advance a motion to consider B2 and recall 115. So we have,
So-
that we don't want too
Right.
many.
Well, let's hold off on the motion. We're just doing the discussion at this point. Anyone else? Commissioner Earhart?
Yeah, to your point, Chair Ariano asking about the district or the boundary between 2 and 3, that's kind of an ugly line to me. And I think it's not going to be easily understandable by the people who live in those areas and the way those neighborhoods are drawn up. So that concerns me a great deal.
That would be my observation as well. Commissioner Hill.
This is Vice Chair Gilmer.
Well, hang on, Vice Chair Gilmer, we had.
I
Commissioner
was
Hill and
going
then
to add another thought onto what Commissioner Earhart just said, which is that I think it's implicit in what she said that it divides the Willows neighborhood between 2 districts, and that's a fairly it's strong neighborhood.
Vice Chair Gilmer.
Yeah, I was going to speak in agreement to the comments. I'm actually very happy that we're all pretty much in alignment. Actually, I'd say we're all very much in alignment in keeping the neighborhoods as together as we possibly can. The Willows is a very strong neighborhood together, so I'd hate to see it split up. And I also have some concerns about the 3 districts meeting and breaking up what is the downtown neighborhood into 3 different districts. I understand the comments related to the economic interests. I'm not quite sure how they apply in our situation where each district represents a certain population, and fundraising and things like that really wouldn't come into play as far as I can understand. But I'd like to see that kept into at least 1 district so the neighborhoods are kept together. Thank you.
Anyone else? I struggle a little bit with this concept of economic representation, if I'm describing it correctly, because I mean, the idea of a community interest is to group communities of interest in a way that they can effectively and fairly represent those interests. And I guess I'm just not quite seeing how, say, having 3 council member districts with, with downtown representation is really advancing that, beyond what we would already have, I guess, with two council members. And when you also factor in the possibility of splitting up existing neighborhoods, in this case, it looks like it would be the Allied Arts neighborhood. And then also the Willows feels undesirable to me, especially in light of some of the other alternatives before us.
Chair Ariano, this is Commissioner Saad. I reconsider my comments. I thank you, Chair, Vice Chair Gilmer, and other commissioners who spoke to the fact that this map breaks the Willow community of interest in half, and for that reason, I'm not in favor of it anymore. I value your opinion altogether. Thank you so much.
Oh, okay, thank you. Is there a motion then? Do we have any further discussion? Commissioner Earhart. One more time, please.
I'm moving that we drop map B2 from further consideration.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Commissioner Ballas, I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Herron or Ms. Sandoval, please state the motion and call for a vote.
Thank you, Chair. We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Earhart and seconded by Commissioner Ballas to remove map B2 from further consideration. Is there any further commission discussion or questions? Okay, hearing none, by roll call vote, Commissioner Ballas,
Yes.
Commissioner Earhart,
Yes.
Commissioner Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Saad,
Yes.
Commissioner Walter,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gilmer,
Yes.
Chair Ariano.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Thank you all. So that leaves us with maps 1, 15, pardon me, 124 and 120.
And the request.
And 120 A and B, I suppose, as we'll see them. Okay. That feels very manageable for next week.
Yeah, can I ask you a question, Nova?
Yes, go ahead.
In the districtor tool, the maps had numbers, which is like 118, 6-digit numbers. Are you saying you took all of those and then put them into these maps that we're seeing with the new numbering system? Or can you just help us understand that?
That's correct. We just assign public map numbers so that mostly to distinguish publicly submitted maps from maps that are submitted by GeoNovo.
For example, if it'd be better to answer this offline, like I'm not seeing 118341 where it got mapped.
Well, hold on, let me pull up that item for you, see if I can double check that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the ID again, Commissioner Walter?
118341.
118341. Yes, that one, I can confirm that one was deemed not viable due to a population variance above 10%. So we did not forward that for consideration by the IRC.
On the software, it shows 6.53%. I'm reading it right.
Sorry, Alex, you might want to explain the difference between the numbers on districtor and how you're coming up with your population variance.
Yeah, great point, Vice Chair Gilmer. So in districtor, what it shows you is it shows you the single district with the highest variance from ideal. When we do the calculations in total, we're taking the most populated district and the difference between the least populated district and taking that as a percentage from the ideal. So we're not just using one district in this case, we're using, you know, the variance between the highest and lowest.
Is that the metric that's used?
That is the metric that is used as a best practice in redistricting.
Is that shown in the software?
We attempted multiple times to get districtor to make that adjustment, but it would have impacted modules that they have already deployed for other clients across the country.
Okay. I'd say that's a real issue for next round. You know,
Commissioner Gilmer, if I may, it's, I'm sorry, Walter. Commissioner Walter, just for me to explain, last time what GeoNovo told us is if we keep the variation in the districtor below 5% or below, then when they do the overall variation, population variance, then it would it has a chance to be less than 10%.
I
If,
see.
if your variation within districtor is above 5%, there's a good chance that you might exceed the 10%. So that was the kind of a point of confusion for me, but giving that I have statistics background, I could understand it, but I can tell that maybe the general population might struggle with it, how normally we said less than 10%, but within the districtor, it has to be less than 5%. So it
Thank
translates
you.
to less than 10%.
Thank you.
I hope that makes it clear. Thank you.
If I can just add, I think the addendum that was sent out today by GeoNovo, which explains some of the information on the maps, has the formula that you're applying to get the variance from ideal. We might want to make that a little bit more public and point it out if anybody has questions regarding the differences between the numbers that they see in districtor and the numbers that are on these sheets. I think that might clarify that.
Yeah, Vice Chair Gilmore, that's a great point. We did add a note to the event page of districtor advising to keep the population variance under 5% if at all possible. But we will also coordinate with City Clerk Karen and her team to make that formula, make those calculations more publicly available.
Thank you.
I have a question or comment. At the risk of, this is Commissioner Ballas, at the risk of proliferating variance, when we're looking at 120, I know there was some concern about the split of the Willow neighborhood in trying to get the populations more in balance. So there's another way to take 120 balanced population and keep contiguous districts and compact districts. And that's by stealing a little from four, stealing a little from 4, giving it to 3, and then stealing a little from 5 and giving it to 4. So a little shift north, and you get very nice straight across boundaries, and that might solve that problem. And I just submitted it. I think I can submit till tomorrow, right? I just submitted it as map 120 proposed mod for balance. I think the world's most concise title. But you should be able to see it, Mr. Sands and Mr. Garcia, if you could take a look at that, if that's okay with everybody.
Absolutely, we'll process that submission and provide it to the IRC for the next meeting.
Thank you for Commissioner Ballas rolling up your sleeves. Anything further on this? We've got one more item, so we're not done quite yet. Anything further on item E1? Okay, thank you. So we'll move on. Item F, informational items. Informational items are transmitted to the IRC in staff's effort to provide an update on matters of importance to the IRC. Informational items are not action items. However, a commissioner, city staff member, or member of the public may request to make a comment or ask a question on any of the informational items. Ms. Sandoval, do we have any public comments on this?
Thank you, Chair. At this time, any member of the public wishing to comment on item F1, public engagement update, should engage the raised hand feature at the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in from a landline or cell phone, please press *9 to raise your virtual hand. This will be our final call for public comment on item F1, public engagement update. Seeing no hands raised, Chair Ariano, please continue.
Okay, thank you. Item F1, public engagement update. Ms. Herron, do you have a presentation, or is it does the staff report speak for itself?
Thank you for checking, Chair. As an information item, staff has not prepared any presentation. It's just info. If there are any questions, we're happy to try to answer those.
Okay. Anything from the commission? Commissioner Earhart.
I'd just like to thank the staff for the many ways they've tried to reach out and all the work they've done. It's very much appreciated.
Same. Anyone else? Okay.
Like, I think likewise, a thank you to GeoNova for getting us this far and all the help they've been giving us.
I second that.
So I think if there's nothing further, we can move on to agenda item G, reports and announcements, commissioner reports. Does anyone have anything to share for the group since our last meeting on March 10th? Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and adjourn for the evening. Thank you all very much. Thank you to the attendees who stuck with us for 3+ hours. And our next meeting is, I believe, next Thursday. Is it our normal starting time, Ms. Heron?
It's 5:30.
March
5:30.
5:30.
Okay.
It's virtual only.
5:30, March 31st, virtual only. Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.